Welcome back. Environment Minister Peter Kent has ignited an angry backlash from environmental groups by suggesting here on Power and Politics that Canadian charitable groups are being used to launder foreign funds and to obstruct and delay environmental assessments. Is there any truth to his claim? And how are environmentalists reacting? Let's find out. Joining me now is Sierra Club of Canada's Executive Director, John Bennett. Good to see you, Mr. Bennett.
Hi, Rosie.
Okay, let's remind people of what Mr. Kent said on this program so that we can get your comments and maybe your feelings on why he said it. Here's Peter Kent.
Essentially, what our government is doing through the Finance Committee is investigating allegations that offshore funds have improperly been funneled through, laundered, if you will, that's a fairly accurate word, through Canadian organizations that have charitable status. Their objectives are to obstruct and to delay the reasonable process of environmental assessments.
Okay, let's start with your reaction to those comments.
Well, the minister is a big fat liar. He's using McCarthyism, techniques of passing out slurs and innuendos to create fear and misunderstanding in the public to hide the fact that he's gutting Canada's environmental protection laws.
I should say that he repeated the comments, but failed to give examples of instances where money laundering would have happened.
Well, what I said in my blog today was if he can put evidence that there's criminal laundering of money, according to the government's own definition of what laundering money is, it's a criminal activity. If he's got some evidence, put it on the table and I'll donate $100 to whatever environmental charity that is his favorite. I don't think I'm going to have to pay $100.
What do you think he should do?
He should shut up and he should apologize to the millions of Canadians who consider themselves environmentalists. You know, is it a bad thing that thousands of people want to participate in a decision that's going to affect generations upon generations in terms of the environment? Is that a bad thing? Why is it wrong for environmental groups to encourage people to get involved and talk about issues that affect them and their children?
You want him to shut up, or you don't want him to retract the statement, or just stop talking entirely? Is that fair?
Well, unless somebody puts something in front of him for him to read, he's not going to say anything. So maybe the Prime Minister can help us out here. But clearly we have a government that's attacking environmentalists.
They do have some points that they are trying to make around environmental groups, and this is around, of course, the approval of projects. When environmental groups, for instance, coordinate an action to delay a project by having hundreds of people speak to a committee, you know, on whether the project should happen, they're trying to shut that down. They are trying to somehow balance it out from their perspective.
What they're trying to do is create a cover. Yes, that we need some improvements in our environmental laws, but if you read the 150 pages of the 400-page budget, it's a rewriting of Canada's environmental protection laws. A total destruction of them. Why is that in the budget? That has no business in the budget.
Well, there's lots of things in the budget that
well, there's nothing else has 150 pages.
True enough.
And it's the budget. The budget should be about how they're spending money. If they want to change the environmental laws, they should do it properly. We should have full hearings. We should have consultation. The first communication I've had from Environment Canada about the changes was an email this morning saying there's going to be a briefing on Monday if I want to phone in. Nobody asked anyone in the country what kind of changes should be done in a consultative way.
So what can you do, though? Because, as you say, there is no consultation, and it's not going to be going to the Environment Committee. It looks like it might go to a subcommittee. What can you do to press back?
We've been talking and working hard together, all the environmental groups, and I think you're going to see in the next few weeks a different kind of response. But we're going to make sure that every Canadian understands that because of this budget bill, they have less rights, and their children's future is in jeopardy.
What kind of response? Protests? I mean, it just seems like in a majority position, people are limited as to how you can respond.
Look what's happening here. He's saying it's a bad thing to want to go and testify at a public hearing. So they're driving. You know, the environmental movement came out of the streets, and this government wants to put us back in the streets. And they're trying to put us on the streets by trying to prevent us from raising money. But we're going to raise money, and we're going to talk to Canadians, and Canadians are going to understand, and they're going to react, and they're not going to stand back and watch 35 years of environmental law be destroyed because a few oil companies want to get on with the job.
Okay, speaking of oil companies, TransCanada reapplied today to put the Keystone pipeline down in through the United States. They say it is not going to hit the the sensitive, most sensitive ecosystem in Nebraska that they are going to reroute around there. Is that satisfactory? Will that satisfy particularly environmentalists in the U.S., I guess, who are up in arms?
That's not the issue. The issue is climate change. The issue is what happens
I thought the issue was also what might happen if you run a pipe through.
No, the issue is what happens when you burn the oil at the other end of the line, and you just change the climate. We have to stop doing that. Sorry, Alberta. Sorry, people in the oil industry, but your product is destroying the climate. We have to invest in different areas to reduce our emissions.
So what are we supposed to do, Mr. Bennett? Not use oil anymore? I mean, that doesn't seem quite realistic right now.
It's absolutely realistic, and I got piles of reports on my desk, and you've seen them too, that show how to do it. We could do it if we want to.
But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen overnight.
No one's saying it's going to happen overnight. But expanding the supply system is not going to solve the problem with the greenhouse gas emissions.
So for you, it doesn't matter what TransCanada puts on the table for Keystone. Nothing is satisfactory.
What we have to have in North America is a plan to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. It is possible to utilize what's in the oil sands, or the tar sands, which is what they used to call it, and at the same time as reducing emissions. But until we have a plan where we're actually reducing emissions, we're not going to stand by and allow them to continue down the wrong route. We have a responsibility to our children and our grandchildren, and we have a commitment from this government and the government of the United States to reduce emissions. They have done nothing about that except gut environmental rules and complain about environmentalists demanding action on climate change.
So do you think that Keystone faces the same level of opposition that it had the first time around?
Absolutely. What both countries have to do is have a plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and until they have it, this is not going to be settled.
Okay, John Bennett, some tough talk from you today.
I'll try to do my best.
John Bennett from the Sierra Club, thank you very much.